My kids invited me to dinner at La Fontaine, one of the fanciest restaurants downtown, and I was thrilled, until I arrived. There was no table for me. The hostess's eyes flicked past me like I was invisible. My eldest daughter, Ava, smirked and said, "Maybe somewhere less fancy would suit you better." My chest tightened, and I felt a wave of humiliation. I forced a small laugh, hiding the sting behind it. Around me, my family exchanged glances, barely concealing their amusement. My hands trembled slightly, but I straightened my posture. I knew I had to handle this differently, calmly, deliberately. I walked toward the restaurant manager, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The room fell silent, or maybe it was just in my head. "Excuse me," I said evenly, "I'd like the best table available." The manager's eyes widened, recognition dawning. And then I saw him, my longtime friend and business partner, Jonathan. He gave a subtle nod, almost imperceptible, but it sent a shiver down my spine. My heart thudded. What my kids didn't know was that every chair, every dish, every wine bottle in this restaurant was under my name. And in that moment, I realized power could taste as sweet as revenge. I took a slow breath, feeling years of sacrifice wash over me. I was 68, widowed in my 30s, and had spent decades ensuring my kids would never know want. My hands bore the marks of years spent scrubbing floors and washing dishes in other people's homes. While other mothers leisurely took their children to parks or on vacations, I worked extra weekends to pay for private schools, tuition, and their first cars. I'd watched my late husband die too soon, leaving me alone with 3 kids, and promised I'd never let them feel that emptiness again. Every penny, every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, it had all been for them. But standing there, facing their disdain, I realized something important. Despite every sacrifice, respect wasn't guaranteed. Love didn't automatically equal gratitude. And yet, a quiet strength began to grow inside me. My laugh, the one that hid both fury and hurt, wasn't just for show anymore. It was a signal. A silent declaration. I knew my worth, and nothing, including their ignorance, could erase it. That night would be remembered, not for their arrogance, but for my awakening. I stepped closer to the manager, whispering, "Prepare the chef's special for my table." His eyes sparkled, an acknowledgement of trust. Jonathan's subtle grin confirmed it. Everything was set. I looked back at my family, faces painted with shock and mild confusion, and I allowed a genuine smile. This wasn't just about dinner. This was about decades of unseen work, love, and resilience finally being recognized. And somewhere in that room, the balance had shifted. Power, patience, and persistence often came quietly, but when unleashed, they spoke louder than any insult. As we sat down, I observed my children pretending everything was normal, as if they didn't just slight me. Ava played with her napkin, rolling it in her fingers nervously. My son, Liam, kept glancing at me, unsure why I wasn't embarrassed or retreating. And then it hit me, they didn't know me. Not really. They only knew the version I allowed them to see, the one always smiling, cooking, cleaning, giving, sacrificing. But this version, the woman in control, was still alive, still watching, and ready to reveal the truth in small, deliberate doses. The waiter approached, bowing politely. I ordered the finest dishes without hesitation: lobster bisque, truffle risotto, a bottle of vintage Chardonnay. Every choice sent a subtle message. My children's eyes widened with confusion. "Mom, how?" Ava began, but her voice faltered. That falter alone was satisfying, proof that they were starting to see the real me. I didn't need to shout or create a scene. Silence, composure, and a quiet display of authority spoke volumes. And in that moment, I realized how intoxicating dignity could be when wielded after years of being underestimated. My mind wandered back to the mornings I woke before dawn, preparing lunches and breakfasts for them while my back ached and my hands cracked. I remembered paying for private schools, tutors, and extracurriculars that they'd later take for granted. I thought of my late husband's funeral, the way the world felt like it had crumbled beneath me, and how I had to keep moving forward, alone. Each memory fueled a new fire inside me, a determination that nothing, not even my own family, could dim. The conversation around the table was polite, almost formal, but every word I spoke was measured to remind them subtly of my authority. I smiled at the waiter, acknowledging Jonathan with a quick nod. My children didn't see it, but I had an ally in him, someone who'd witnessed my struggles and understood my rise. I realized then that life isn't about proving yourself to everyone, it's about knowing your value and choosing the right moments to reveal it. And tonight, I had chosen perfectly. By the second course, tension thickened like cream on a dessert. Liam kept stealing glances at me, unsure whether to speak or remain silent. Ava tried to maintain composure but kept fidgeting with her bracelet, a nervous tic she hadn't outgrown. The other diners, unaware of the drama unfolding, continued their meals, but in my mind, every glance from my children felt amplified. Every smirk or whisper became evidence of ignorance and entitlement. And yet, I remained calm, sipping my wine slowly, letting the scene unfold as if I were watching a play. I remembered the first apartment I bought for Liam, the sleepless nights ensuring bills were paid, balancing accounts while working 2 jobs. I recalled Ava's first car, a bright red convertible, how her eyes lit up as she drove off, unaware of the sacrifices that made it possible. Each memory reminded me of everything I had done quietly, invisibly, and how the smallest gestures often go unnoticed until you choose to illuminate them. And tonight, that illumination would shine. The conversation shifted slightly when the chef personally approached our table, presenting the truffle risotto. From the chef himself, Jonathan whispered to me. I nodded, savoring the recognition without needing explanation. Ava's fork paused mid-air, her lips parting slightly. Wait, you mean, she started, but I raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. Words weren't necessary, my presence, the carefully curated meal, and subtle acknowledgement from the chef conveyed more than any confession could. I realized that life's lessons often arrive quietly but hit profoundly. Respect isn't demanded, it's observed, earned, and recognized when the time is right. My children had grown accustomed to taking for granted the woman who sacrificed everything for them. But tonight, that script was flipped. The woman they thought they knew, the one always giving, never commanding, was reclaiming her narrative, her dignity, and her voice. And it felt electrifying, like the first breath of air after being submerged too long. By dessert, the atmosphere was electric. My family whispered, unsure how to process the shift. Jonathan leaned in, quietly recounting details only I would know about our shared businesses, signaling subtly how much control I held beyond the dinner table. The tension was palpable, almost cinematic. I could see it in Ava's eyes, the hesitation in Liam's movements. Power had a rhythm, patience had a weight. And tonight, I carried both effortlessly. I reflected on decades of hard work, mornings spent scrubbing floors, nights spent balancing ledgers, years ensuring my children had opportunities one never did. I had often wondered if it was all worth it, if sacrifice without acknowledgement meant anything. But in this moment, watching their expressions shift from smugness to uncertainty, I realized that timing was everything. Life rewards quietly, and recognition often comes when you least expect it but most deserve it. I smiled as Jonathan brought the check discreetly, confirming the subtle truth my children hadn't yet fully grasped. Every plate, every glass of wine, every service charge, it was mine. Not just in possession, but in power, in legacy. The quiet, relentless dedication of my life had manifested in a single, undeniable truth. Respect cannot be demanded, it must be understood. And now, understanding had arrived. As we left the restaurant, my children's whispers followed me. Mom, how did you? Ava murmured, unsure where to begin. I just laughed softly, a laugh not born of anger, but of triumph. Triumph not in spite of them, but in recognition of the life I had built, the sacrifices made, and the resilience cultivated. Little did they know, this evening was only the beginning. And deep down, I carried another revelation, one that would transform not just this night, but the very way I experienced every opportunity to come. The drive home was quiet, almost surreal. Ava and Liam sat in stunned silence, the city lights reflecting off their confused expressions. I kept my hands on the wheel, feeling a quiet satisfaction simmering beneath the surface. I thought about the mornings I woke before dawn, folding laundry in someone else's kitchen while their tiny voices drifted in my memory. The sacrifices I made, the sleepless nights, and the tears shed quietly had built something far greater than they could ever understand. I recalled the small moments no one noticed, the times I baked cookies for a school fundraiser after long shifts, the late nights sewing prom dresses, the endless support that went unnoticed. Every small gesture had been a stitch in the fabric of their future. And now, watching them sit in awe, I realized that power isn't about yelling or proving dominance, it's about quietly letting the truth reveal itself when timing is perfect. Jonathan's presence that night had been subtle but crucial. He had been a witness, a silent confirmation of what I had built. While my children had assumed I was just mom, he knew the full extent of my strength, resilience, and control. That knowledge, shared with someone who truly understood, made me feel untouchable. I finally understood that life isn't about approval from those who doubt you, it's about recognition from those who see your value. I glanced at my children, still unsure how to respond, and felt a rush of empathy. Years of entitlement, of taking for granted, had blinded them. They didn't understand the depth of sacrifice required to provide opportunities they had always considered their right. But tonight, they were beginning to see the edges of that truth. And that was enough for me, for now. My power didn't need to be shouted, it needed to be witnessed, silently, and with awareness. The next morning, the world seemed unusually still. I sat by the window with a cup of black coffee, reflecting on the previous night. My mind wandered through memories, bittersweet and vivid, each one a reminder of the journey that had brought me here. The first day of school for Liam, the graduation of Ava, the late nights balancing bills while dreaming of a better future for them. All the invisible sacrifices, the unnoticed acts of love, they had all led to this quiet triumph. I thought about the resentment that had sometimes crept in, the silent anger I suppressed to protect them. There were moments when bitterness threatened to consume me, but I chose patience and perseverance instead. That choice had built resilience stronger than any insult could break. And I realized that my life had always been about more than just survival, it was about preparing the next generation, even if they couldn't see the depth of that effort yet. Later that day, I went through old letters and photos, reminders of both struggles and victories. Each photograph told a story of relentless determination, each letter a testament to a promise I made to myself and my children. Those memories strengthened my resolve, reminding me that my journey was valid, and my sacrifices meaningful. Life had finally aligned in such a way that recognition was inevitable, even if delayed. By evening, I felt a quiet sense of anticipation. Not for confrontation, but for clarity. My children were beginning to perceive the truth. They were realizing that the woman they had underestimated was someone with depth, vision, and authority. And as I prepared dinner quietly at home, I reflected on a powerful realization: life rewards patience, courage, and relentless commitment to your values. The subtle victories often hit hardest. A week later, I invited my children to a casual brunch, a test of sorts. I wanted to observe them without drama, to see if the lessons were sinking in. Liam fiddled nervously with his fork, glancing at me cautiously, while Ava tried to maintain a composed smile. Their uncertainty was palpable, and it gave me a quiet sense of validation. I realized that respect, once earned, doesn't need to be demanded, it manifests naturally through observation and awareness. I shared stories from my past, tales of late nights cleaning, early mornings baking, endless hours balancing work and family. I painted the moments with vivid detail: the smell of laundry soap, the heat of the small apartment kitchen, the quiet hum of the city outside my window. Each story carried weight, subtle yet profound. I could see their expressions shift from casual disinterest to genuine awe as they realized the magnitude of my journey. The conversation gradually became about choices, resilience, and vision. I spoke of opportunities lost and found, of lessons learned in silence, and of the value of persistence. I noticed a spark in their eyes, recognition, perhaps even admiration. It was the beginning of understanding, the delicate unfolding of awareness that the sacrifices of a lifetime are never in vain. That night, as I reflected alone, I felt a wave of gratitude for the life I had built. Not because of wealth, power, or acknowledgement, but because of the unshakable strength and wisdom I had gained. I understood that true influence doesn't come from control, it comes from resilience, clarity, and the quiet unveiling of truth at precisely the right moment. And the next chapter of our lives, theirs and mine, was just beginning. The following day, I found myself walking through the city streets, observing the world with fresh eyes. Each interaction, each glance, each small coincidence seemed charged with meaning. I noticed opportunities aligning, people approaching with unexpected generosity, doors opening where there had previously been walls. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Life, it seemed, had begun to respond to a quiet, unseen force. I recalled the years of struggle, the sleepless nights and endless sacrifices, and realized that those hardships had prepared me for this moment of alignment. I was no longer reactive or desperate, I was attuned to the rhythm of opportunity, noticing patterns and possibilities others overlooked. Every decision now felt purposeful, intentional, and profoundly effective. Later that evening, as I prepared for a video call with a potential business partner, I felt the culmination of decades of effort manifest in real time. Connections, ideas, and possibilities began appearing in perfect sequence. The subtle magic of persistence and patience revealed itself in ways I could not have imagined. And I understood, fully, that this power was accessible to anyone willing to commit and focus. As I ended the call, I smiled, knowing that the final piece of the puzzle was within reach. The culmination of my story, both personal and professional, was approaching. And soon, I would share the simple, transformative method that had activated this chain of opportunities, a method anyone could use to realign their life. My children, my legacy, and the universe itself had begun converging toward a single, undeniable truth. Days passed, and I noticed subtle shifts in my children's behavior. Ava lingered in conversations longer, her smirk replaced by curiosity. Liam asked questions, hesitantly, about my past and the sacrifices I had made. Each inquiry was a small victory, proof that awareness was taking root. I realized that change didn't need to be forced, it emerged gradually, like sunlight filtering through thick clouds. Walking through the park that afternoon, I remembered moments of exhaustion, holding my youngest as she slept while the world seemed indifferent. I thought about the meals I skipped to provide for them, the nights I cried silently in an empty apartment. Each memory was a testament to my commitment, a story etched into my soul. And now, it was beginning to resonate with those who had once dismissed me. Jonathan called that evening, asking for advice on a new project. As we spoke, I marveled at the synchronicity of opportunities. People, ideas, and doors I hadn't even considered were appearing as if drawn to my persistence. I realized that alignment, patience, and subtle influence could reshape reality when applied consistently. The world was responding, quietly but undeniably, to the energy I had cultivated over a lifetime. That night, I reflected on the lessons embedded in every sacrifice. Life had a rhythm, one I had only recently begun to understand. My past hardships were not burdens, they were preparation. And the most profound realization struck me: the small, consistent actions, the quiet perseverance, held more power than any dramatic display of wealth or authority. My life was proof of that truth. The following week, I hosted a casual dinner at my apartment. I wanted to observe their reactions in an intimate setting, free from the grandiose backdrop of La Fontaine. Ava and Liam arrived, cautious but intrigued, their eyes searching for signs of the woman they thought they knew. I served simple comfort foods, but each dish carried a story: chocolate cake baked at midnight, soup simmered with care, memories of countless nights spent cooking to sustain them. As we ate, I shared stories from my youth, the long hours working multiple jobs, the relentless struggle to ensure stability for my family. I painted the scenes vividly: the scent of soap and laundry, the dim light of our first tiny apartment, the relentless city hum outside our windows. They listened, slowly absorbing the depth of my experiences, the reality of my sacrifices that had shaped our lives. Jonathan checked in silently during the evening, offering subtle guidance. His presence reminded me that alliances and support systems are critical in life. Some victories are personal, others require quiet collaboration. Together, we had navigated challenges and built a foundation of trust, proving that resilience coupled with strategy amplifies results. By the end of the night, I sensed a shift. My children were beginning to perceive the layers of my life they had ignored. Respect, once dormant, started to emerge naturally. They didn't need to verbalize it, their demeanor said it all. And I realized that true transformation, whether personal, professional, or relational, requires patience, timing, and the subtle, unwavering demonstration of one's value. Ava called me the next morning, voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Mom, I didn't realize everything you've done." Her words were hesitant, almost fragile. I felt a wave of validation, tempered by empathy. She had grown up seeing the surface, the everyday convenience of her mother's dedication, never the hidden toil beneath it. Now, that realization was sinking in, transforming her perception. Liam joined the conversation, asking questions about our family history, financial decisions, and sacrifices I had quietly made. The curiosity was not just about knowledge, it was about connection. They were beginning to bridge the gap between perception and reality, understanding the breadth of a lifetime of effort. I listened patiently, offering insight without judgment, letting the revelations unfold organically. Walking through the city streets later, I noticed opportunities presenting themselves in new ways. Conversations sparked unexpectedly, doors opened, and ideas that had seemed distant aligned with surprising clarity. It was subtle, yet powerful, proof that consistent effort, integrity, and resilience create ripples in ways we often fail to notice. That evening, as I reflected quietly, I realized how transformative awareness can be. When those around us begin to grasp the magnitude of our journey, the respect and recognition naturally follow. The timing of these realizations is rarely immediate, but their impact is profound. And I knew that my story was only entering its most powerful chapter, one that would lead to a life-changing revelation. By the middle of the month, the dynamic at home had shifted entirely. Conversations were deeper, gestures more thoughtful, and glances carried acknowledgement previously absent. Ava and Liam were learning to see the woman who had quietly built their lives, layer by layer, year by year. I noticed subtle changes in how they approached me, listening with genuine consideration rather than casual dismissal. I reflected on years spent balancing multiple jobs, endless chores, and emotional labor while remaining invisible to most. Those struggles had forged resilience, patience, and insight, qualities invisible but potent. And now, finally, they were recognized, not through confrontation, but through observation and understanding, a quiet, undeniable triumph. Jonathan's continued presence and advice highlighted another truth: support and partnership amplify what dedication alone can achieve. Through careful collaboration, the paths to opportunities became clearer, more accessible. Life had a rhythm, a sequence, and the more aligned one becomes with that flow, the greater the returns, both personal and professional. By evening, I felt a subtle yet powerful energy circulating around me. Patterns were aligning, choices became clearer, and opportunities seemed to manifest almost naturally. The world responded to preparation, patience, and insight, and I began to understand a method so simple yet profound that it could shift any life. Soon, I would share it, a secret so effective that even 9 words could activate its power. One morning, I noticed a small pattern forming. People I reached out to responded almost instantly. Opportunities one had previously chased with no results were now arriving effortlessly. The city itself seemed to pulse differently, as if recognizing my readiness to act. I smiled quietly, recalling the years of preparation that had led to this invisible alignment. Patience had matured into power. At brunch that day, Ava hesitated before sharing a thought. "Mom, how did you manage everything?" Her voice trembled slightly. I took a deep breath, letting a quiet smile do the talking. My life had always been about subtle influence, careful persistence, and consistent action. These were lessons not taught in books but lived through decades of commitment. I remembered the nights balancing spreadsheets and laundry, preparing meals, and staying awake to ensure bills were paid. Those tiny, repetitive acts had accumulated, creating a foundation no one had seen. And now, the world was responding to that foundation, almost like gravity itself had shifted in my favor. Each opportunity that appeared felt like a reward for years of unseen dedication. Jonathan called later, sharing news of an unexpected opportunity. "It's perfect timing," he said, excitement in his voice. I laughed softly. Timing, preparation, and alignment, these were the forces that shaped my world. No shouting, no dramatic gestures, just a quiet, patient mastery over the rhythms of life. And I realized, fully, how simple this principle could be for anyone willing to notice it. Later that week, I hosted a casual gathering for old friends. I watched as conversations flowed, connections formed, and opportunities began to crystallize before my eyes. The subtle energy I had cultivated over decades was now visible in interactions, like a magnetic force guiding people and events. I marveled at how consistent effort and integrity attracted the right circumstances naturally, almost effortlessly. Ava lingered nearby, her expression shifting from curiosity to admiration. Liam asked thoughtful questions, probing details of past decisions I had long taken for granted. I responded with stories, painting them with vivid sensory details, the aroma of freshly baked bread, the hum of early morning city streets, the quiet of nights spent planning and working. They listened, absorbing not just words but the essence of the life I had lived. I realized then that patience isn't passive, it's active. It's the consistent application of effort, insight, and observation over time. My children were witnessing the results of that patience. They didn't need to understand all the details, they just felt the weight and significance of decades of effort manifesting in real life. As I walked home, the city lights reflecting in puddles from a recent rain, I understood the quiet truth: preparation aligns opportunity with intention. Life responds to consistency, integrity, and focus, even when recognition seems distant. And I felt the satisfaction of knowing that the next step, one that could transform not only my life but anyone willing to follow the same method, was imminent. The following morning, I sat with a journal, documenting patterns I had noticed. Connections, chance encounters, and small coincidences were now forming a rhythm. Each detail felt purposeful, as if the universe itself had begun orchestrating outcomes to match my readiness. The years of diligence, struggle, and silent effort were converging into visible results. I realized that understanding and harnessing these forces was a skill anyone could develop. Ava stopped by with a question about my routine. "Mom, how do you always seem aligned?" Her curiosity was genuine, unfiltered. I smiled, recognizing the perfect moment to teach without lecturing. Alignment comes from awareness, persistence, and subtle action. It's not flashy, but its impact is undeniable. And the more you practice it, the more opportunities reveal themselves naturally. Later that day, Jonathan sent a message, hinting at an unexpected collaboration that could redefine our work. The timing, precision, and synchronicity of these events were staggering. I realized that the principles guiding these outcomes were surprisingly simple, yet almost universally overlooked. A method existed that could create this alignment deliberately, and it could be taught. By evening, I reflected quietly. The energy around me had shifted in ways both visible and subtle. Patterns, connections, and opportunities were no longer random, they were responding to preparation, focus, and intentional effort. And I knew, with clarity, that anyone could access this transformative principle if they followed the same disciplined, patient approach. One afternoon, I sat in a quiet cafe, observing the world moving around me. Patterns of synchronicity emerged everywhere, people meeting at the right place at the right time, coincidences stacking like dominoes. I remembered decades of discipline, careful observation, and unrelenting persistence. All of it had led to this invisible alignment of life's events, a rhythm anyone could learn to recognize. Ava and Liam joined me later, sitting quietly as I shared stories not of wealth or success, but of patience, foresight, and consistent action. Their eyes widened as they began to grasp the subtle mechanics that had shaped our lives, the invisible rules guiding opportunity, and the impact of deliberate, small choices over time. Jonathan checked in once more, signaling a breakthrough project. The perfect timing, the right people, and the alignment of resources seemed almost magical. But it wasn't magic, it was preparation meeting opportunity, persistence meeting timing. And I realized that a surprisingly simple method could make this happen for anyone, in any stage of life. That night, I reflected on the journey. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and unnoticed effort had built not just a life, but an awareness of how to align with opportunity itself. And I knew that I was ready to reveal this method, something so simple, it could be summarized in just 9 words, yet powerful enough to transform anyone's reality. The revelation was near. The city felt different that morning, quieter, sharper, as if every street and alley had been waiting for me to notice its rhythm. I walked with purpose, observing patterns, coincidences, and small signals aligning around me. Life, I realized, had been speaking all along, I just hadn't been listening closely enough. Every interaction, every timing, every opportunity was converging perfectly, as if orchestrated by decades of preparation and patience. Ava and Liam met me at a small gallery downtown, their eyes curious, searching for the lessons I had learned. I shared stories of effort, resilience, and subtle observation, how small, deliberate choices over years could create outcomes far greater than expected. They listened intently, the awe and understanding slowly replacing confusion and doubt. I could feel the weight of years of invisible work settling into tangible recognition. Later, I visited a local cafe, where conversations with strangers revealed new opportunities. Timing, persistence, and subtle influence created results that seemed magical but were in fact a product of disciplined awareness. Every encounter, no matter how casual, carried significance. I realized this method, though deceptively simple, was a key to unlocking alignment in life, a principle almost anyone could apply. As the day faded, I felt a quiet certainty. Patterns, coincidences, and synchronicities weren't random, they were the result of preparation, focus, and intentional action. And now, after decades of experience, I was ready to share it with anyone willing to notice, apply, and believe. The secret wasn't complex, it was 9 words, perfectly aligned to trigger opportunity and transformation. That evening, I hosted a small dinner with close friends. Ava and Liam observed quietly as I recounted stories of perseverance, patience, and invisible effort. They began to see the connection between consistent action and real-world outcomes, understanding that life responds to energy, focus, and timing. Recognition wasn't instant, but it was emerging naturally. Jonathan sent a message mid-dinner, confirming a breakthrough I had anticipated for months. I smiled, knowing that subtle alignment and preparation had orchestrated this outcome. It was not luck, it was a process, repeatable, reliable, and accessible to anyone willing to learn. The key was understanding the rhythm of opportunity and how small, deliberate actions create momentum. After dinner, I reflected on decades of sacrifice, long nights, early mornings, and relentless commitment. I realized that the greatest power I had discovered wasn't money, position, or recognition, it was alignment, the ability to attract the right people, ideas, and opportunities at the right time. And the astonishing part? This method could be simplified into a tool anyone could use. I turned to Ava and Liam, my eyes steady. "There's something I want to show you," I said. "It's simple, just 9 words, but if you apply them correctly, they'll change everything." Their curiosity piqued, eyes wide, eager to understand. I smiled, knowing that the principles that had quietly reshaped my life were now ready to inspire theirs, and anyone willing to listen. The next morning, I sat at my desk with a notebook, writing the 9 words that had transformed my life. Each word was deliberate, precise, and contained a resonance that triggered clarity, focus, and alignment. I reflected on years of struggle and perseverance, realizing that every hardship, sacrifice, and sleepless night had led to this moment of revelation. I called Ava and Liam over. "These 9 words are simple, but they carry energy that aligns opportunities, ideas, and connections," I explained. Their eyes widened with understanding, realizing the profound simplicity of what I had discovered. "Life," I told them, "responds to those who recognize patterns, persist quietly, and act intentionally." The power was accessible to anyone, it just required attention and belief. Later, I demonstrated, quietly speaking the 9 words as I worked, observing subtle shifts in energy, timing, and opportunity. Small coincidences began appearing in perfect alignment, as if life itself was responding to the command hidden within those words. My children watched, amazed, understanding that transformation doesn't require force, it requires precision and awareness. By nightfall, I knew this method could be shared beyond our family. It wasn't secretive, it was universal. Anyone could recite the words, align their energy, and notice opportunities appearing in the right moment. All it required was belief, attention, and consistent application. And I left a note for anyone ready to try. The instructions were in the comment pinned below, waiting to ignite a shift. The city lights flickered as I walked home, reflecting on decades of effort, patience, and quiet strategy. From being underestimated by my own children to witnessing alignment and transformation, life had shown me the invisible power of subtle influence. And now, this power, the same that had changed my life, could be shared, simplified into 9 words that anyone could apply. I recalled the first dinner at La Fontaine, the smirk from Ava, and the disbelief in Liam's eyes. That night was the turning point, a reminder that resilience, preparation, and awareness create outcomes far beyond expectation. The lessons of decades were distilled into a simple method, waiting for anyone willing to notice, apply, and believe. I leaned back, smiling, knowing that small actions, consistency, and focus were universal tools. The 9 words had shifted my life from frustration to alignment, creating opportunities, synchronicities, and breakthroughs that seemed almost magical. And the best part? Anyone could do the same. The process was accessible, simple, and ready to activate transformation. So, if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unnoticed, remember this: for years, I felt trapped, as if nothing I did mattered. Then I discovered something deceptively simple: 9 words. Just 9 words, recited correctly, that started activating opportunities, ideas, and connections in ways I never imagined. And if you want to experience it too, the comment pinned below contains the starting point. One simple step. 9 words. Life begins to shift.